This is not an accident. You did not stumble onto this message by chance. You were led here tonight. In ways you may not fully understand, heaven adjusted your steps, slowed your scrolling, stirred your curiosity, and placed this exact moment in front of you. Archangel Michael stands as a warrior and a guardian, and when he speaks, it is not casual. It is not random. It is precise. And tonight, his message is piercing through the noise of your life for a reason. You may have thought you were just passing time. You may have believed this was just another video. But in the spiritual realm, this moment was marked long before you pressed play. This is a divine appointment. There are thousands of distractions competing for your attention every day. Endless voices, endless opinions, endless noise. Yet somehow, through all of that, you were drawn here. Why? Because there are moments in life that determine direction. Moments that quietly divide the past from the future. Moments that carry weight far beyond what the eyes can see. Tonight is one of those moments. And if you ignore it, if you treat it lightly, if you dismiss it as coincidence, you may walk away from something heaven carefully arranged for your breakthrough. Archangel Michael is not a symbol of fear. He is a symbol of divine intervention. When he appears in spiritual revelation, it is because something critical is unfolding. A battle is near. A decision is forming. A destiny is being protected or redirected. And the urgency in this title is not exaggeration. It is warning wrapped in mercy. Skip this and suffer eternal regret is not meant to frighten you into obedience. It is meant to awaken you to the seriousness of divine timing. There are some opportunities that do not circle back. There are some revelations that do not repeat themselves. When heaven calls, delay can cost more than you realize. You have been sensing something lately, haven't you? A restlessness, a stirring, a feeling that something is shifting beneath the surface of your life. Maybe doors have been closing unexpectedly. Maybe certain relationships feel strained. Maybe your peace has been unsettled. What if those were not random disturbances? What if they were signs? Signs that you are standing at a spiritual crossroads. Signs that a decision is approaching. Signs that the battle around your destiny has intensified. Here is the shocking truth. Not every divine message comes with loud thunder. Sometimes it comes disguised as a simple click. A quiet moment alone at night. A video title that seems unusually direct. The enemy thrives on convincing you that spiritual interruptions are meaningless. That they are algorithms. That they are coincidence. But divine orchestration often hides within ordinary circumstances. And tonight, something uncommon is happening in what looks ordinary. This is not about entertainment. This is not about curiosity. This is about alignment. If you were led here, it is because your spirit recognized a call before your mind understood it. Deep down, something told you to listen. Something urged you not to scroll past. That inner nudge was not random. It was invitation. It was protection. It was mercy reaching out before a misstep could create consequences you cannot undo. Eternal regret does not always mean dramatic catastrophe. Sometimes it means looking back and realizing you ignored the moment that could have changed everything. Realizing you felt the warning but chose comfort. Realizing you sensed the shift but chose distraction. Regret is heavy because it whispers, "You knew and you did nothing." Archangel Michael's voice tonight is cutting through that future possibility. It is saying, do not repeat that pattern. Do not walk away from this one. There are rare revelations that only come once. Not because God is cruel. Not because heaven withholds. but because certain seasons have expiration dates. Doors open and they close. Windows appear and they pass. You are in a window right now. A fragile, powerful, decisive window. And the fact that you are hearing this means you have not missed it yet. But the urgency is real. Delay has consequences. Indifference has consequences. Spiritual apathy has consequences. You may not see the full picture tonight. You may not understand every detail of what is unfolding. But you do not need the full map to recognize a divine interruption. You only need humility to acknowledge it. The warrior of heaven does not stand at your side for casual reasons. Protection is activated when purpose is near. Warnings are issued when impact is approaching. And something about your life right now has drawn attention in the spiritual realm. Ask yourself honestly, why does this feel heavier than usual? Why does this message feel direct? Why does it feel like it is speaking into something specific you have been wrestling with? That is not coincidence. That is connection. A powerful, deliberate connection between your present situation and this prophetic warning. Tonight is not about fear. It is about awakening. It is about recognizing that you are seen, that your decisions matter, that your obedience matters, that your hesitation matters. You were led here because something in your future depends on what you do next. And before the battle intensifies, before the choice becomes unavoidable, before the window narrows further, heaven wanted you informed. This is not an accident. You were led here tonight, and what you choose to do with this moment may echo far beyond what you can currently see. There is a battle around you that you cannot see with your natural eyes. It does not make headlines. It does not announce itself with noise. But it is real, and it is intense. Archangel Michael is not assigned to ordinary ground. He stands where destiny is being contested. He guards what heaven has marked. And if you were led here tonight, it is because something about your life has drawn spiritual attention. You may have thought the resistance you've been facing was random. You may have blamed circumstances, people, or even yourself. But what if the pressure you feel is evidence of purpose? When destiny is near, opposition increases. When breakthrough approaches, distraction multiplies. Have you noticed how tired you've been lately? Not just physically, but spiritually. How small things have felt heavier than they should. How focus hath been harder to maintain. That is not weakness. That is warfare. The unseen realm reacts when you move closer to alignment. The enemy does not attack what is irrelevant. He targets what carries impact. And you carry impact. Archangel Michael is described as a warrior, a defender, a protector in times of spiritual conflict. That means when his presence is invoked, something valuable is being guarded. Something sacred is under threat. And right now, your calling is under scrutiny. Your obedience is being tested. Your next step is being contested. You may not hear swords clashing, but you feel the tension. You sense that something is shifting, and at the same time, something is resisting that shift. Think about the days leading up to tonight. Were there unusual distractions? Sudden doubts? Unexpected arguments? Waves of insecurity that seem to come from nowhere? These are not coincidences. They are tactics. The enemy specializes in redirection. If he cannot destroy your destiny, he will try to delay it. If he cannot silence your calling, he will try to drown it in noise. And the easiest way to win a battle is to convince the warrior there is no war. But now you know. There is a war over your focus, a war over your confidence, a war over your obedience. And the reason you were led here is because heaven refuses to let you fight blindly. Archangel Michael does not step into battle without revealing that it exists. Awareness is your first weapon. Discernment is your shield. You may have felt like giving up recently, like stepping back, like choosing comfort over calling. That temptation is not accidental. It is strategic. When the enemy senses that you are one decision away from breakthrough, he intensifies pressure. He whispers that it is not worth it. He magnifies your fears. He replays your past failures. He makes delay feel safe. But delay in a divine moment is not safety. It is surrender. There is something else you need to understand. The fact that you are watching this, the fact that you did not scroll past, the fact that you are still here listening, this is resistance against that pressure. This is you choosing awareness over apathy. This is you stepping into alignment instead of drifting into distraction. And that choice matters more than you realize. Right now, there are others who feel the same stirring you felt. Others who are on the edge of a decision. Others who are facing the same invisible battle but do not yet have clarity. This is why your engagement is not small. When you like this message, when you share it, when you comment in agreement, you are not just interacting with content, you are amplifying a warning. You are helping this message reach those who are also being called. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already, because this is not about a single video. It is about standing consistently in alignment when heaven speaks. And comment below as a declaration that you recognize the battle and you refuse to fight it unaware. Your public agreement is a bold statement in the spiritual realm. The enemy thrives in secrecy. He thrives when you isolate yourself, when you think you are the only one struggling, when you believe your resistance is personal failure instead of spiritual opposition. But exposure weakens his strategy. When light touches darkness, confusion begins to break. And tonight, light is being turned on in your understanding. You are not crazy for feeling this tension. You are not dramatic for sensing urgency. You are not imagining the shift. There is a reason your life feels like it is standing on the edge of something. Because it is. Destiny is not passive. It requires decision. And decisions attract resistance. Archangel Michael stands as a reminder that you are not alone in this conflict. Protection surrounds purpose. But protection does not remove the need for obedience. You still must choose. You still must act. You still must refuse to shrink back. This invisible battle is not meant to scare you. It is meant to explain what you have been experiencing. The pressure is proof. The resistance is confirmation. The distractions are evidence. You are closer than you think. And that is exactly why the battle has intensified. The question is no longer whether there is a war around your destiny. The question is whether you will recognize it and rise accordingly. There was a moment recently, quiet, almost invisible, when you whispered something to God. Maybe it wasn't even out loud. Maybe it was a thought formed in exhaustion, a question shaped by frustration, a plea wrapped in uncertainty. Show me. Guide me. If this is you, confirm it. You may have forgotten that prayer, but heaven did not. And tonight, what you are hearing is not random inspiration. It is response. You asked for a sign, but you expected lightning. You asked for clarity, but you imagined something dramatic. Instead, you were led here. A title caught your attention. A stirring in your spirit would not let you scroll past. That was not curiosity. That was confirmation. The sign you requested did not arrive in spectacle. It arrived in precision. It met you exactly where you are. Doubt tried to intercept you before you clicked. You almost ignored it. You almost convinced yourself it was nothing. That hesitation was not logic, it was resistance. Because when confirmation comes, opposition also moves. The enemy knows that once you recognize a divine sign, your confidence will rise. Your obedience will strengthen. Your hesitation will weaken. So he whispers, it's not that serious. It's just another video. Keep scrolling. But something deeper in you said no. Something inside you felt the weight of this moment. Divine alignment rarely feels loud at first. It feels intentional. It feels directed. It feels like the message is looking straight at you. That is because it is. Heaven knows how to address you personally, even in a crowd. The fact that these words feel specific is not imagination. It is orchestration. You are not one of many right now. You are the one being spoken to. Think about the pattern of your life. The crossroads you've been standing at. The decision you've been postponing. The conviction you've been trying to quiet. You asked for clarity about that. And clarity has arrived. Not to prayer you, but to free you. Because uncertainty keeps you paralyzed. Confirmation activates movement. The sign you asked for is not only that you are being warned. It is that you are being protected. Warnings are evidence of care. If heaven did not value your future, it would remain silent. But silence has been broken. That alone should tell you how serious this season is. Archangel Michael's presence in this message signals that what concerns you also concerns heaven. The battle around your next step is real. But so is the protection surrounding it. You may still be questioning, is this really for me? If you have to ask that question, it probably is. Random messages do not pierce the heart. Coincidence does not create conviction. The reason this feels weighty is because it carries your name in the spirit. The reason it feels urgent is because delay has already cost you enough time. There is something powerful about recognizing a sign in real time. Many people only see divine intervention in hindsight. They look back years later and say, that was God. But you are being given the rare opportunity to recognize it now. To see the sign while it is still unfolding. That awareness can change everything. And here is what you must understand. Signs create responsibility. Once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you see, you cannot pretend blindness. This is why the title carries such intensity. Skip this and suffer eternal regret is not manipulation. It is reality. Regret grows where revelation was ignored. But you are not ignoring this. You are here. You are listening. And that means something is shifting inside you already. Do not rush past this realization. Let it settle. Let it confront you gently but firmly. You prayed. Heaven answered. Not in your timing. Not in your expected format. But in divine precision. And this confirmation is not small. It is directional. It is protective. It is urgent. There is more being revealed than you currently see. What feels like a single message is connected to a larger unfolding. What feels like a simple confirmation is actually the first layer of a deeper assignment. And in a moment, you will begin to understand why this sign carries consequences if ignored. Hold on. What comes next will challenge everything you thought was coincidence. Before we move forward, seal this moment in faith. Type I receive the sign in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 316 is now activated over your obedience and clarity. The stirring you feel right now is not emotion alone. It is alignment taking place. And when alignment happens, movement follows. But movement requires support. If this message has just confirmed the very sign you were asking God for, then you understand how critical it is for others to receive their confirmation too. This channel exists to release light into moments like this, to speak when heaven is nudging hearts in silence. Scripture says, "Give, and it will be given to you." And this is not just ink on a page. It is God declaring that what you release becomes multiplied in your life. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or a PayPal donation, you are not funding content. You are sowing seeds into souls waiting for their sign. I feel led to say this clearly. I am inviting you to become a carrier of confirmation for someone else tonight. Your generosity becomes oil that keeps this lamp burning. It becomes seed that produces harvest in lives you may never meet. Do not hesitate when the Spirit prompts you. The PayPal link is in the description, and you may see the QR code flashing on your screen. Act as the Lord moves your heart. As you give, may open heavens respond over your home, and may the same clarity you receive tonight multiply back into your future. Step into this moment of obedience and give now. There is a trap that looks harmless on the surface. It does not feel rebellious. It does not feel dramatic. In fact, it often feels wise, patient, even responsible. The trap is delay. And right now, delay is the greatest threat to your destiny. You have already received the sign. You have already sensed the urgency. You have already felt the confirmation settle in your spirit. But now comes the subtle whisper, "Not yet. Tomorrow. After things calm down. When I feel more ready." That whisper is not innocent. It is strategic. Because the enemy understands something many believers forget. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. Procrastination rarely announces itself as danger. It presents itself as comfort. It tells you to gather more information, to wait for better conditions, to avoid making waves. But divine moments are rarely convenient. They rarely arrive when everything feels stable. In fact, they often interrupt comfort precisely because comfort can become a cage. You may think you are buying time by waiting, but spiritually, time is not neutral. Time either advances your obedience or strengthens your hesitation. Every day you postpone a necessary decision, the weight of that decision grows heavier. Fear gains more room to speak. Doubt finds more arguments. The urgency that once felt clear begins to blur. And before you know it, what was once conviction becomes memory. This is how destiny is stolen, not through dramatic collapse, but through gradual postponement. There are people who look back on their lives with a quiet ache, not because they committed some terrible public failure, but because they ignored a private prompting. They remember the night they felt called to step forward, the season they sensed a shift, the warning they recognized but softened. And years later, they wonder what might have happened if they had moved when heaven nudged them. That is the weight of regret. And regret often begins with the words, "I'll do it later." Archangel Michael's warning is not only about blatant rebellion. It is about subtle delay. Because delay keeps you in the same cycle. It keeps unhealthy connections alive longer than they should be. It keeps you in environments that stifle growth. It keeps you tolerating habits that quietly erode your spiritual strength. And while you are waiting for clarity to increase, clarity is waiting for you to move. There is a spiritual principle many overlook. Movement unlocks revelation. You are not always given the full picture before you act. Sometimes obedience is the key that opens the next instruction. But if you refuse to turn the key, the door remains closed. Not because God is withholding, but because obedience activates access. Ask yourself honestly, what have you been postponing? What conversation have you avoided? What decision have you delayed? What step have you justified waiting on? The longer you delay, the more comfortable the wrong season becomes. And comfort in the wrong place is dangerous. You might say, I just need more confirmation. But how much confirmation is enough? You were led here. You received the sign. You felt the conviction. At what point does seeking more clarity become an excuse for avoiding courage? Delay also weakens momentum. When you first recognize a divine instruction, there is energy attached to it. There is grace in that moment. There is boldness available that may not feel as strong weeks later. That initial stirring is a gift, is empowerment for immediate action. If you ignore it, you may find yourself trying to manufacture later what was freely given before. And here is another truth. Delay affects more than just you. Your obedience is connected to other lives. There are people waiting on the other side of your decision. There are opportunities aligned with your courage. There are doors that open not only for you, but for those assigned to your influence. When you postpone, you do not just stall your progress. You slow down impact that was meant to flow through you. This is why procrastination is not small. It has ripple effects. The enemy does not need to destroy you if he can distract you. He does not need to attack you openly if he can convince you to wait indefinitely. The calling postponed long enough begins to feel optional. The warning ignored long enough begins to feel exaggerated. A divine moment neglected long enough begins to feel like it never mattered. But it did matter. It still matters. And that is why this message is pressing into your spirit with urgency. You are not being rushed into recklessness. You are being called into timely obedience. There is a difference. Recklessness ignores wisdom. Obedience responds to conviction. You already know the difference deep inside. The tension you feel is not confusion. It is the friction between fear and faith. Do not mistake temporary discomfort for permanent harm. Sometimes stepping forward feels unsettling because you are breaking a cycle. Sometimes speaking up feels risky because silence has been familiar. Sometimes walking away feels painful because attachment has been strong. But growth almost always requires leaving something behind. The trap of delay promises safety, but in reality, it preserves stagnation. Tonight, you stand at a decision point. Not necessarily a dramatic public decision, but an internal one. Will you act on what you have heard? Or will you push it aside and hope the urgency fades? Understand this clearly. Divine windows do not remain open forever. Mercy speaks. Warning comes. Opportunity presents itself. But eventually, the season shifts. And when it does, you cannot rewind to the moment you are in right now. You were led here for a reason. You received the sign for a reason. Do not let delay become the quiet thief that robs you of what obedience was about to unlock. There are moments when heaven does not whisper. It warns. Not to condemn. Not to shame. But to protect. And this is one of those moments. Archangel Michael's presence in this message is not symbolic decoration. It is a signal. A signal that something in your path requires immediate attention. A line is being drawn in the spirit, and you are standing close to it. This warning is not vague. It is not general. It is personal. There is a decision forming in your life right now. You may not have announced it to anyone. You may still be debating it internally. But it is there. A relationship you are reconsidering. A compromise you are justifying. An opportunity that looks good on the surface, but feels unsettled in your spirit. You have been trying to silence that unease. Trying to convince yourself that you are overthinking. But that discomfort is not anxiety. It is discernment. Archangel Michael does not show up when everything is harmless. He stands guard when something valuable is at risk. And what is at risk right now is not just a temporary outcome. It is alignment. The choice in front of you may seem small. It may look manageable. But small doors can lead to large consequences. And not every open door is sent by God. The warning is clear. Do not cross a line that heaven has already marked. You know the line. You have felt it. It is that inner boundary you keep approaching. That limit you keep testing. That conviction you keep negotiating with. Every time you move closer to it, you feel a check in your spirit. A pause. A hesitation. That is not weakness. That is protection trying to hold you back from unnecessary battle. Some warnings come before disaster. Others come before detour. This one comes before delay. Because the path you are considering may not destroy you, but it will distract you. It will consume time. It will drain energy. It will complicate clarity. And by the time you realize it was not aligned, you may find yourself retracing steps you did not need to take. Mercy warns before consequences speak. You may be thinking, it's not that serious. But that is exactly how compromise grows. It rarely begins with something extreme. It begins with something subtle. A small exception. A slight bending of standards. A quiet agreement with something you once said you would never tolerate. Over time, what once felt wrong begins to feel normal. And that normalization is dangerous. Archangel Michael's urgent warning is this: do not normalize what God has already convicted you about. There is also someone listening who is standing at the edge of reconnecting with something they were delivered from. An old habit, an old environment, an old attachment. You have romanticized it in your mind. You have remembered only the comfortable parts. But you have forgotten the chaos that came with it. The sleepless nights, the confusion, the spiritual heaviness, the distance you felt from peace. The warning is not about punishment. It is about preservation. Protection often feels restrictive in the moment. Like a guardrail on a mountain road. It limits how far you can drift. But that limitation is what keeps you alive. If the guardrail could speak, it would not apologize for standing in your way. It would say, I am here because the drop beyond this point is steep. Heaven is placing a guardrail in front of you right now. You may feel frustrated by it. You may wish the path were simpler. But simple is not always safe. Easy is not always aligned. And immediate gratification is not always worth long-term cost. The enemy specializes in presenting options that look harmless at first glance. But beneath the surface, they carry spiritual weight. Ask yourself, why did this warning arrive now? Why not months ago? Why not later? Because timing matters. You are closer to acting than you admit. The internal debate has intensified. The rationalizations have grown stronger. And heaven, in mercy, has stepped in before your next move becomes a misstep. This is not about living in fear of making mistakes. It is about honoring conviction when it speaks. You are not being asked to understand every detail. You are being asked to trust the check in your spirit. Trust the discomfort. Trust the hesitation. Those signals are not random. They are guidance. And here is something powerful. Warnings are proof of value. No one guards what is worthless. No one defends what has no purpose. The reason this warning carries urgency is because your calling carries weight. The reason protection is being activated is because your future matters. If you ignore this, you may not see immediate collapse. That is what makes it deceptive. The consequences may unfold slowly, gradually, quietly. You may only realize later that peace has faded, that focus has weakened, that momentum has slowed, and by then, undoing the effects will require more effort than obedience would have. But you are not too late. The warning has arrived before the crossing. This is your moment to step back from the line, to reconsider, to realign, to choose long-term peace over short-term comfort, to honor the conviction you have been trying to silence. Archangel Michael stands not with accusation, but with a drawn sword of protection. The message is urgent, but it is loving. Do not cross what heaven has closed. Do not reopen what God has removed. Do not entertain what your spirit has already rejected. This warning is mercy in action, and how you respond will determine whether it becomes a shield or a memory you wish you had listened to. There are moments in life that do not last forever. They are not permanent seasons. They are not open-ended invitations. They are windows, and windows by nature close. What you are standing in right now is not just a random stretch of time. It is a divine window, a narrow, intentional opening where obedience carries unusual weight and decisions echo louder than normal. You may feel it in your spirit, a sense that this is a pivotal season, that what you choose now will shape what unfolds next. This feeling is not imagination, it is awareness. You are being made conscious of timing, and timing in the spiritual realm is everything. There is a difference between Chronos time and divine time. Chronos is the ticking clock, the calendar days, the predictable progression of hours. But divine windows operate in what many call kairos, pointed moments charged with purpose. In these moments, one act of obedience can accomplish what years of striving could not. One bold decision can unlock doors that have resisted you for a long time. But Kairos moments do not remain indefinitely. Right now, grace is hovering over a specific area of your life. You may not see it physically, but spiritually, there is acceleration available. There is clarity within reach. There is momentum waiting to be activated. The window is open, but not permanently. You may be tempted to assume that if you do not act now, you can always act later. That if you hesitate, another opportunity will present itself in the same way. But divine windows are not recycled on demand. They are tailored to seasons, and seasons shift. Think about how many times in your past you sensed you should move, but waited. You felt prompted to step forward, but delayed. Eventually, the urgency faded. The opportunity changed. The environment shifted. And what once felt ripe with possibility quietly passed. You adapted. You moved on. But somewhere deep inside, you knew you missed a moment. This is not meant to bring shame. It is meant to awaken urgency. The window you are in now concerns more than a single decision. It concerns alignment with your calling. There are patterns in your life that are being challenged, habits that are being exposed, attachments that are being tested. The grace you feel right now, the conviction, the clarity, the stirring that is the open window, is empowerment for change. But empowerment must be acted upon. When a window is open, fresh air flows in. Vision becomes clearer. Light enters. But if you stand near it and do nothing, eventually it closes, and the room returns to its previous state. The difference between those who step into breakthrough and those who remain in cycles is often this: response time. You are being given advance notice. The window is open now. The conviction is strong now. The warning is clear now. The protection is active now. But there will come a point when the urgency softens, not because the calling disappeared, but because the season shifted. Some people interpret a closed window as rejection, but often it is simply timing. The opportunity was there, the grace was present, the invitation was extended, but when it was not embraced, the moment concluded. There is something else you must understand. Windows are not only about blessing, they are also about escape. Some windows are exits from patterns that would otherwise trap you. The stirring you feel to walk away, to shift direction, to confront what you have tolerated, that is an exit window. It will not remain open forever. If you hesitate too long, you may find yourself deeper in a situation that is harder to leave. Heaven, in mercy, is giving you clarity before complexity increases. The phrase "skip this and suffer eternal regret" carries deeper meaning here. Eternal regret is not about a single mistake. It is about recognizing that you were aware of a window and chose not to move. It is about looking back and remembering that you felt the urgency clearly, but convinced yourself it could wait. Do not confuse patience with postponement. Patience waits when God has not spoken, but postponement delays after He has made it clear. Right now, you are not in confusion. You are in confrontation with truth, with timing, with responsibility. The clarity you have been asking for is here. The protection you needed has been activated. The warning you required has been delivered. The question is not whether the window exists. The question is whether you will step through it. Windows close quietly. There is rarely an announcement, rarely a countdown. They simply shift. And when they do, you either find yourself on the other side of obedience or still standing where you began. You were led here tonight not only to receive revelation, but to recognize timing. This is a decisive stretch of your journey, a sacred opening, a narrow but powerful space where faith must move faster than fear. The window is open. It will not always be. There is a reason the title carries such weight. Skip this and suffer eternal regret is not dramatic language meant to stir emotion. It is a sober reflection of a spiritual law. Ignored revelation carries consequences. Not always immediate, not always visible, but inevitable. When truth is revealed to you, you are no longer the same person you were before you heard it. Knowledge creates responsibility. Awareness creates accountability. And when you choose to look away from what you now understand, something shifts internally. It is subtle at first, a quiet dulling of conviction, a slight numbing of sensitivity. But over time, repeated disregard for divine prompting hardens the heart. If you skip this, not just the message, but the obedience it calls for, you risk entering a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break. The first consequence is spiritual desensitization. A voice that once felt clear begins to feel distant. The urgency that once stirred your spirit fades into background noise. You tell yourself that nothing catastrophic happened, so everything must be fine. But spiritual decline is rarely explosive. It is gradual. It feels manageable at each step. Until one day, you realize you no longer feel what you once felt. The second consequence is misalignment. When you ignore a warning, you continue down a path that required correction. At first, it may still look productive. Doors may still open. Progress may still appear visible. But beneath the surface, peace begins to erode. Decisions become heavier. Confusion increases. What should feel clear feels complicated. Misalignment creates friction in every area of life. And then comes delay. Opportunities that were meant to unfold smoothly begin to require struggle. What could have been accelerated now takes longer. What could have been avoided now must be endured. You may find yourself praying for relief from situations you were warned about before they intensified. This is not punishment. It is consequence. There is also the weight of regret. And regret is not just sadness. It is the haunting awareness that you knew better, that you felt the nudge, that you recognized the window, that you heard the warning, and yet you postponed, dismissed, or rationalized it away. Eternal regret does not mean endless torment. It means a lasting awareness of a missed divine moment. Some people carry that awareness for years. They function. They move forward. But deep inside, there's a quiet whisper, I should have listened. Imagine looking back on this very night months or years from now. Imagine remembering that you felt something stirring, that you sensed urgency, that clarity was offered to you. And then imagine realizing that you chose comfort instead. That is the regret this message is trying to prevent. Here is another layer to this. When you ignore divine instruction, it does not only affect you, it affects those connected to your calling. There are people who will be influenced by your obedience, or hindered by your delay. When you step out of alignment, the ripple travels further than you can see. Skipping this moment may not destroy your destiny, but it will complicate it. It may not erase your calling, but it will postpone its fullness. It may not remove God's grace, but it will require you to walk through lessons that could have been avoided. You might think, I can handle the consequences. But consequences rarely arrive in isolation. They intertwine with emotions, relationships, opportunities, and inner peace. What seems manageable now can become overwhelming later. There is also the risk of developing a pattern. If you ignore this warning, it becomes easier to ignore the next one. If you silence conviction once, it becomes simpler to silence it again. Over time, responsiveness weakens. And when responsiveness weakens, intimacy with God diminishes. This is why the tone of this message is urgent. Not because heaven is threatening you, but because heaven is fighting for you. Archangel Michael's involvement signals that what is at stake is not trivial. The battle around your obedience is real because your future impact is real. The resistance you feel is proportionate to the significance of your calling, and the warning is proportional to the importance of your decision. If you skip this, if you treat it lightly, you are not just skipping a video. You are bypassing a checkpoint. You are walking past a guardrail. You are ignoring a sign that was placed specifically in your path. But here is the hope. You have not skipped it yet. You are still here. You are still listening. You are still aware. That means the outcome is not sealed. The regret is not written. The delay is not inevitable. You stand at a crossroads right now. One path leads to alignment, clarity, and acceleration. The other leads to complication, delay, and the slow ache of what if. The choice may not feel dramatic in the moment. It may be a quiet internal decision. But quiet decisions can shape loud outcomes. You were led here for a reason. Not to be entertained. Not to be momentarily stirred. But to be awakened before misalignment becomes momentum. Skipping this carries weight. But responding to it carries power. The next step is yours. Everything you have heard so far has been building to this moment. The warning. The urgency. The window. The battle. None of it was simply about avoiding regret. It was about preparing you to receive an assignment. Because heaven does not warn without purpose. Protection is activated when responsibility is near. And tonight, something is being entrusted to you. You may not see yourself as someone with a spiritual assignment. You may think of yourself as ordinary, unqualified, still figuring things out. But heaven does not choose based on perfection. It chooses based on positioning. And you have been positioned through experiences, through trials, through lessons you did not even realize were training you. The stirring you feel is not just about correction. It is about commissioning. There is a mantle, an invisible weight of responsibility, hovering over your life in this season. Not a title, not a platform, not necessarily something public, but a calling that requires maturity and obedience. And the reason the battle intensified around you is because the assignment you carry has impact. You have been through things that were not random. The struggles you endured built discernment. The disappointments shaped resilience. The delays taught patience. Even the mistakes refined humility. What you thought was just survival was actually preparation. Now the preparation meets opportunity. The assignment being released tonight is this: step fully into alignment and become a guardian of what God has placed in your hands. That may mean guarding your environment more intentionally, guarding your habits more carefully, guarding your peace more fiercely. It may mean stepping into leadership in a space where you once remained silent. It may mean cutting ties with what weakens you so you can strengthen others. This assignment will require courage, because alignment attracts attention. When you fully commit to obedience, resistance may intensify before it subsides. But that resistance is confirmation, not contradiction. It means movement has begun. There is also a deeper layer. Some of you are being called to intercede, to stand in prayer for your family, your community, your future. You have underestimated the authority you carry in the spiritual realm. But the battles you have faced have trained you to recognize patterns others overlook. You see warning signs sooner. You sense shifts earlier. That sensitivity is not accidental. It is part of your assignment. You are being trusted with awareness. But awareness without action is wasted. The assignment is not simply to know. It is to move, to speak, to shift, to decide, to respond when conviction rises instead of retreating into comfort. And here is the powerful truth heaven shows you, not because there were no other options, but because your journey uniquely equipped you. The experiences that once made you feel isolated are now becoming insight. The pain that once made you question your path is now becoming perspective. Nothing was wasted. This is the moment where everything converges. You may feel a mixture of excitement and fear. That is normal. Assignments stretch you. They pull you beyond what feels predictable. But they also unlock fulfillment you cannot find in stagnation. The window you were warned about is directly connected to this assignment. If you delay alignment, you delay activation. If you ignore conviction, you postpone commissioning. But if you respond now, if you say yes internally, momentum begins immediately. Do not wait to feel fully ready. Readiness grows through obedience. Clarity increases as you move. Confidence strengthens as you act. The first step does not need to be grand. It needs to be faithful. And understand this: what is being released tonight is not temporary enthusiasm. It is responsibility. A shift in how you see yourself. A shift in how you handle decisions. A shift in how seriously you treat conviction. You are no longer just someone navigating life. You are someone entrusted with influence, whether visible or unseen. Your obedience will create protection not only for you, but for those connected to you. There is more unfolding than you can currently perceive. What feels like a personal awakening is tied to a broader impact. And in the next part, you will begin to see how your public agreement activates protection in ways you may not have considered. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed. Before we move forward, seal this commissioning moment. Type "I accept my assignment" in the comments as a declaration of alignment. Blessing code 824 is now activated over your courage and obedience. If this assignment stirred something deep in you, then you understand this is bigger than one person. Just as you were prepared for this moment, there are others being prepared right now who need this same awakening. When you give through Super Thanks, become a member, or so through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not supporting a channel. You are fueling a commission. Scripture declares that those who sow generously will reap generously, and this is not distant promise. It is a living exchange in the Spirit. I am inviting you to step into this prophetic act of partnership. Let your seed become oil that keeps this message flowing to the ones marked for alignment. Do not delay when the Spirit prompts you, because obedience in giving carries its own assignment. As you release your support, may heaven release fresh strength over your household. May provision meet you in unexpected ways. May the courage you just declared be multiplied back into your life. Act now. Seal this moment with movement. There is something powerful about what you say out loud, not just in conversation, not just in prayer, but in declaration. Words are not empty in the spiritual realm. They carry alignment. They establish agreement. They activate authority. And tonight, your public declaration matters more than you realize. Up until now, everything hath been internal. The stirring, a vindication, a warning, the assignment. It has all been happening within you. But there comes a moment when what is internal must be confirmed externally. Silence can preserve contemplation, but it can also prolong hesitation. And hesitation weakens momentum. When you declare something publicly, you cross a threshold. You are not declaring for attention. You are not declaring for applause. You are declaring to establish alignment. Because what you agree within your words, you strengthen in your spirit. And what you repeatedly speak, you begin to live out more boldly. There is a reason the enemy tries to keep believers quiet about their convictions. Silence makes retreat easier. If no one knows your stance, it feels simpler to compromise it. If no one hears your commitment, it feels less binding. But when you declare, "I accept this assignment," or "I choose obedience," something shifts. You are no longer drifting internally. You are standing intentionally. Public declaration activates protection because it signals seriousness. When you move from silent agreement to spoken commitment, you step into spiritual clarity. You are drawing a line not only for yourself, but in the unseen realm. You are saying, "I recognize this moment. I refuse to ignore it. I will not treat it lightly." And that kind of clarity disrupts confusion. You may wonder how something as simple as typing a comment or sharing a message could carry weight. But understand this: agreement multiplies impact. When you declare publicly, others see courage. Others feel confirmation. Others realize they are not alone in their stirring. Your declaration becomes someone else's breakthrough. There are people watching quietly right now, wrestling internally, unsure whether what they feel is real. When they see your boldness, it gives them language for their own conviction. It gives them permission to respond. And that ripple effect extends further than you can measure. This is why your engagement matters. If this message has spoken to you, do not keep it private. Like this video as a sign of agreement. Share it with someone who has been on your heart. Subscribe if you have not already, because this journey is ongoing, and you need consistent reinforcement when the battle intensifies. And in the comments, declare your alignment. Write your commitment. Speak your decision. Not because the platform requires it, but because your spirit benefits from it. You are not just interacting with content. You are sealing a moment. When you speak alignment, protection strengthens. When you publicly reject compromise, temptation weakens. When you declare obedience, fear loses volume. Your words frame your path. There is another reason declaration matters. It counters shame. The enemy often uses shame to keep you silent about spiritual decisions. He whispers that you are not worthy to declare anything, that you have failed too many times before, that your past disqualifies your present commitment. But that is a lie designed to isolate you. Your past does not cancel your authority to choose differently now. In fact, your past gives depth to your declaration. It proves you understand the cost of misalignment. It proves you recognize the weight of delay. And it proves that when you speak now, you do so with awareness. There is a shift that happens when faith moves from thought to expression. You become more accountable, but also more empowered. Accountability is not bondage. It is structure. It keeps you steady when emotion fluctuates. It reminds you of what you declared when pressure rises, because pressure will rise. After revelation comes testing. After commitment comes resistance. That is not to discourage you. It is to prepare you. When you declare publicly, you are fortifying yourself in advance. You are building a reminder you can return to when doubt tries to revisit. And here is something you must hold on to. Your declaration tonight is not about perfection tomorrow. It is about direction. It is about saying, from this moment forward, I choose alignment. Even if growth is gradual, even if learning continues. Direction matters more than flawless execution. There is more unfolding ahead. The battle will not disappear, but your awareness has changed. Your clarity has deepened. And what is about to be revealed next will prepare you for the intensity that sometimes follows obedience. Stay attentive, because what comes next will equip you for the very resistance you have been sensing. Right now, take your stand. Do not let this moment pass quietly. Declare your alignment. Engage you boldly. Strengthen your commitment through expression. Protection responds to alignment. And alignment is activated by declaration. Now that you have recognized the sign, understood the warning, acknowledged the window, and accepted the assignment, there is something you must be prepared for. The battle may intensify. This is not meant to instill fear. It is meant to anchor your expectations in truth. Whenever clarity increases, resistance often reacts. Whenever obedience is declared, opposition takes notice. Not because you are vulnerable, but because you are advancing. You may have already sensed this pattern in your life. Every time you try to get serious about your spiritual growth, distractions multiply. When you commit to change, old temptations resurface. When you decide to walk away from something unhealthy, it suddenly seems more appealing than ever. That is not coincidence. It is counteraction. The enemy does not waste resources attacking what is stagnant. He targets momentum. And tonight, momentum has begun in you. After this message, you may experience subtle tests. A conversation that challenges your conviction. An opportunity that looks like a shortcut. A wave of doubt that questions everything you just felt certain about. Do not interpret these as signs that you misunderstood the message. Interpret them as confirmation that your shift was real. When a soldier steps onto a battlefield, the presence of conflict does not mean he chose the wrong ground. It means the ground is contested. Archangel Michael's symbolism as a warrior reminds you that spiritual advancement is not passive. It requires alertness. But here is the difference between fear and preparation. Fear expects defeat. Preparation expects victory. You are not being warned of intensifying battle to discourage you. You are being prepared so that you are not surprised. Surprise weakens resolve. Preparation strengthens it. When resistance appears, you will remember this moment. You will remember that it was foretold. And instead of retreating, you will stand. There is something powerful about expecting challenge. It removes panic. If you anticipate that your decision to align will be tested, you will not be shaken when the test arrives. You will recognize it for what it is, a reaction to your obedience. This next season may stretch you. It may require firmer boundaries. It may demand consistency where you once allowed compromise. But stretching is not breaking. Pressure is not proof of failure. In fact, pressure often reveals strength you did not know you possessed. You must also guard your thoughts carefully. After a spiritual breakthrough, the mind often becomes the primary battlefield. Doubts may whisper, "Nothing really changed," or "You were just emotional," or "This will fade like it always does." Those thoughts are not neutral. They are attempts to erode your confidence. Conquer them with remembrance. Remember what you felt. Remember the clarity. Remember the conviction. Write it down if you must. Speak it aloud again. Because memory fuels perseverance. There is another layer to this intensifying battle. Growth attracts responsibility. As you step into alignment, you may notice others observing you more closely. Some will be inspired. Others may be uncomfortable. Not everyone celebrates transformation. Some prefer you as you were, predictable, compliant, unchallenging. Do not shrink to accommodate their comfort. Your obedience is not arrogance. Your boundaries are not hostility. Your clarity is not judgment. It is alignment. And alignment sometimes exposes misalignment in others, which can create tension. Stand firm without becoming harsh. Stay grounded without becoming defensive. Remember, the battle intensifying does not mean protection has lifted. In fact, it often means protection is more active than ever. Archangel Michael represents divine defense in the midst of conflict. You are not stepping into this next phase alone. You are stepping into it aware. There is a promise embedded in this preparation. Resistance cannot override destiny when obedience is sustained. The enemy may attempt to delay, distract, or discourage, but he cannot cancel what God has ordained unless you abandon it. And you are not abandoning it. The intensity you may face is temporary, but the growth it produces is lasting. The discipline you develop now will carry you through future seasons with greater ease. The courage you exercise now will make later decisions clearer. When the battle intensifies, do not interpret it as a sign to retreat. Interpret it as a sign that you are moving in the right direction. Storms do not gather around stagnant air. They gather where movement is occurring. You have moved. Now stand. The next part will reveal the reward that follows immediate obedience, the acceleration, the peace, and the doors that open when you refuse to step back. What awaits on the other side of this intensified season is not exhaustion. It is breakthrough. Hold steady. The battle may rise, but so will you. There is something the enemy never wants you to focus on: the reward. He magnifies the battle. He exaggerates the sacrifice. He highlights the discomfort. But he rarely reminds you of what obedience unlocks. And tonight, after everything you have heard about warning, urgency, and intensified resistance, you must now see the other side of this decision. Immediate obedience carries acceleration. When you respond quickly to divine instruction, you bypass unnecessary detours. You avoid lessons that would have been learned the hard way. You step into alignment sooner, which means you begin walking in clarity sooner. What could have taken years to untangle can be resolved in a single surrendered moment. There is a difference between learning through consequence and learning through conviction. Consequence is painful and slow. Conviction is protective and precise. When you obey at the level of conviction, you spare yourself the weight of consequence. And with that obedience comes peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but the steady peace that comes from knowing you are aligned. When you step back from a line you were tempted to cross, something settles inside you. When you close a door that felt questionable, clarity sharpens. When you act on the assignment instead of postponing it, confidence rises quietly but powerfully. This peace is not emotional excitement. It is grounded assurance. Immediate obedience also restores focus. You no longer waste energy debating what you already know you should do. You no longer replay the same internal arguments. Your mind becomes less crowded. Your spirit becomes more attentive. And that restored focus creates room for creativity, strategy, and spiritual sensitivity. Then there is acceleration. Some doors do not open until obedience is demonstrated. Not because God is withholding blessing, but because alignment positions you to handle what is coming. When you obey quickly, you prove readiness. And readiness invites responsibility. You may notice after your decision that certain opportunities appear more clearly. Conversations align unexpectedly. Resources arrive at the right time. This is not coincidence. It is momentum catching up with obedience. There are blessings that were waiting on your yes. You might think obedience only costs you, but often it clears obstacles you did not even realize were blocking you. The distraction you walked away from was draining creativity. The compromise you rejected was weakening discernment. The delay you ended was slowing progress. Once removed, your path becomes lighter. Another reward of immediate obedience is strengthened authority. When you respond to conviction consistently, your spiritual sensitivity sharpens. You recognize guidance sooner. You hesitate less. You trust your discernment more. This authority is not loud or prideful. It is quiet confidence rooted in experience. You begin to see patterns others miss. You sense shifts before they fully form. You navigate decisions with steadiness instead of panic. That is growth. That is maturity. It is the fruit of saying yes when it would have been easier to stall. There is also restoration tied to obedience. Some of you have felt like you lost time, like past delays cost you seasons you cannot recover. But immediate obedience now redeems lost momentum. While time itself cannot rewind, alignment can accelerate restoration. What felt stagnant begins to move again. What felt blocked begins to flow. The enemy wants you to believe that if you delayed before, it is too late to benefit now. But obedience today still carries reward. In fact, delayed obedience that finally becomes decisive often carries even greater clarity because you understand what hesitation cost you. And here is something deeper. Joy returns. Not superficial happiness, but the quiet satisfaction of integrity. The relief of knowing you responded. The freedom of not carrying the weight of what if. Obedience frees you from the mental replay of missed opportunity. Its silence is the whisper of regret before it has a chance to take root. You begin to sleep differently, think differently, speak differently, because alignment affects everything. The battle may intensify briefly after obedience, as you were warned. But the reward outlasts the resistance. Storms pass. Growth remains. Pressure fades. Character stays. And doors that open through obedience often remain open longer than those forced through impatience. You are not being asked to obey for the sake of restriction. You are being invited into acceleration, into peace, into authority, into restored momentum. And here is the truth the enemy hoped you would never fully grasp. Obedience is not loss, it is leverage. It positions you for the life you have been praying for. You asked for clarity. Obedience sustains it. You asked for breakthrough. Obedience unlocks it. You asked for protection. Obedience activates it. The reward is not always immediate applause. It is internal stability. It is forward movement. It is divine alignment that reshapes your path quietly but decisively. And now, as we move toward the final part, you will see how everything connects. The warning, the window, the battle, the assignment, the declaration, and the reward. What you do next will determine whether this night becomes a turning point or just another memory. You are closer than you think. This was not an accident. Before this message closes, the truth must echo one more time in your spirit. You were led here tonight. Not by chance. Not by algorithm. Not by random curiosity. You were guided here because a divine interruption was necessary. A warning had to be delivered. A window had to be recognized. An assignment had to be released. And now, a decision must be sealed. Everything you have heard has converged into this final moment. You were shown the battle so you would not fight blindly. You were given the sign so you would not remain confused. You were warned about delay so you would not drift into regret. You were entrusted with an assignment so you would step into purpose. You were prepared for intensified resistance so you would not retreat in surprise. And you were reminded of the reward so you would not focus only on the cost. Now comes the final layer: assurance. Heaven does not issue urgent messages without offering covering. You are not being sent forward exposed. You are being sent forward aware. There is a difference. Awareness strengthens you. It sharpens discernment. It stabilizes courage. The phrase "skip this and suffer eternal regret" was never meant to paralyze you with fear. It was meant to awaken you before misalignment became momentum. Eternal regret is not your destiny. It was a warning of what could happen if you ignored this moment. But you did not ignore it. You stayed. You listened. You engaged. And that alone has shifted your trajectory. This night can become a dividing line in your life. There will be a before and an after. Before clarity. After clarity. Before hesitation. After decision. Before passive awareness. After active alignment. Do not underestimate how powerful one surrendered moment can be. You may not see fireworks tomorrow. You may not feel dramatic change overnight. But something has recalibrated inside you. Your sensitivity is sharper. Your boundaries are clearer. Your conviction is firmer. And that internal shift will begin to reflect externally in the days ahead. There will be moments when doubt tries to revisit this experience, when the urgency fades slightly and routine attempts to reclaim center stage, when the battle intensifies and you wonder if obedience was worth it. In those moments, return to this night in your memory. Remember the clarity. Remember the weight of conviction. Remember the awareness that pierced through distraction. This was not emotional hype. It was spiritual alignment. You are not leaving this message alone. Protection goes with you. Wisdom goes with you. The assignment goes with you. and the grace to fulfill it goes with you. The enemy hoped you would scroll past. He hoped you would dismiss the nudge. He hoped delay would win again. But you are still here, and that matters more than you realize. This is your assurance. When you respond to divine warning with obedience, you step into divine covering. You are not perfect. You will still grow. You will still learn. But you are aligned, and alignment attracts favor. Favor does not mean the absence of challenge. It means the presence of guidance within challenge. It means doors opening at the right time. It means insight arriving before confusion overwhelms you. It means strength rising when pressure increases. And above all, it means peace guarding your heart when the world around you feels uncertain. You were led here tonight because your future required intervention. And intervention has occurred. Now seal this moment with gratitude and faith. Type "I will not miss my moment" in the comments as your final declaration of alignment. Blessing code 911 is now activated over your protection, obedience, and forward movement. If this message marked a turning point for you, then understand this. There are countless others standing at the same invisible crossroads you once stood at. Just as you were led here at the precise moment you needed it, others are waiting for their interruption, their warning, their awakening. The word says that when you sow beside all waters, your seed will not return empty. This is not a passive verse. It is a living invitation from God Himself. I am calling you into partnership in this mission of divine interruption. When you release a super thanks, become a member, or give through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not donating. You are sowing light into someone else's decisive night. Let your seed become fire that keeps this message burning across nations. Let your generosity become oil that sustains prophetic clarity for souls on the edge of regret. Do not delay this prompting. Obedience and giving is part of your assignment. As you sow, may protection surround your household. May acceleration meet your obedience. May open heavens respond to your faith. Act now. Seal your alignment with movement. This was not an accident, and neither is what happens next.